I have liked Kevin for countless springs and summers. I liked him so much that everyone thought I couldn't do without him. Later, we broke up. On the first day after the breakup, everyone was waiting to see my joke. On the seventh day after the breakup, they began to guess when I would ask Evan to change his mind. In the second month after the breakup, Kevin stood downstairs of the girls' dormitory, his knees slightly bent and his eyes bloodshot. What he doesn't know is that I have been planning this breakup for a long time. In this world, no one is born to like waiting. Chapter 1. I have liked Kevin for countless springs and summers. I liked him so much that everyone thought I couldn't do without him. Later, we broke up. On the first day after the breakup, everyone was waiting to see my joke. On the seventh day after the breakup, they began to guess when I would ask Evan to change his mind. In the second month after the breakup, Kevin stood downstairs of the girls' dormitory, his knees slightly bent and his eyes bloodshot. What he doesn't know is that I have been planning this breakup for a long time. In this world, no one is born to like waiting. 1. After I said goodbye to Kevin, I neatly blacklisted and deleted his WeChat number and mobile phone number in one go, feeling it was not enough. 5 minutes later, I synchronized a piece of painful youth literature on QQ Space and WeChat Moments. Every girl hopes to receive fresh flowers and roses. Every girl should be favored. Every girl hopes to be unconditionally supported by someone. Every girl should have someone come for her. No one is born to like waiting. That was really as non-mainstream as it could be. The sister on my lower bunk looked at me as if I were in mourning. Frightened, she didn't dare to make a sound. Quietly, she took her textbook and walked out of the dormitory. I skipped an evening self-study session and slept soundly in the dormitory. When I turned on my phone early the next morning, the message notifications didn't stop until 5 minutes later. They were nothing but high school classmates coming to inquire about the news of me and Kevin, as well as condolences sent by some familiar people in college classes, student unions, and clubs. I replied to a few close ones according to the degree of intimacy. Just as I was about to delete these annoying dialogue boxes, I saw a unique message. 2. Penny. There's really nothing between me and Kevin. Don't be angry with him. This way, I really feel embarrassed. The message didn't have a signature, but I knew with my butt who sent this text. While affectionately calling someone else's boyfriend Kevin, and at the same time tearfully telling me that she didn't mean it. From high school to college, the same green tea literature, as always. TSK. On the first day after the breakup, I received a text message from my ex-boyfriend's sweetheart. What could I do? Of course, blacklist her. As noon approached, Yo-Yo on the lower bunk carefully approached my bedside. Penny, do you want to go to the third cafeteria with me for a meal? There's sweet and sour pork ribs today. Looking at her worried face, I touched my stomach that hadn't had anything since last night. With a sudden movement, I said, let's go. Breakup is breakup, but life still goes on. 3. On Wednesday, the third cafeteria was overcrowded. Yo-Yo and I got the sweet and sour pork ribs as we wished. When we turned around to find a seat, we found there were no extra seats. After walking around for a while, we finally found a 6-person table with 2 empty seats. Looking again, well, it's really a narrow encounter with an enemy. To sum up the 4 people sitting at that table: Kevin, my ex-boyfriend; Mandy, Kevin's white moonlight; Ben, Kevin's roommate; and a man I don't know. Looking at his back, he is straight and tall, but I don't know if he is good looking. Just 2 words. Unlucky. 4. Yo-Yo looked at me and then at the surroundings. She didn't know whether to advance or retreat. Penny, there are no seats nearby. I turned around and was about to look for other seats when I saw Andy had already got up and walked over. Penny, it's really you. Come and sit together. She has always been outgoing. While saying this, she put her arm around my shoulder and walked towards that table. Kevin stared at me without saying a word from the beginning until I sat down. At this point, I patted the shoulder that Mandy had put her arm around. TSK. It's dirty. 5. On my right is Mandy. On Mandy's right is Yo-Yo. Opposite Yo-Yo is Kevin's roommate, Ben. On Ben's right is Kevin. And on Kevin's right, opposite me, is the man I don't know. The man's back is excellent. And his front face is obviously not randomly grown. With sword-like eyebrows, a straight nose, and thin lips, and a pair of beautiful phoenix eyes. He has the capital to make people fall for his looks. 6. The current atmosphere is really awkward. In a romance novel. This is definitely a love battlefield. But obviously our social butterfly Mandy didn't get her title for nothing. Penny, can I have a piece of your sweet and sour pork ribs? I didn't see it when I got my food just now. While saying this, she also affectionately leaned closer to me. Her small eyes covered with several layers of powder stared straight at me. I looked at her and didn't answer. The atmosphere was a bit stagnant. Kevin probably couldn't stand it and wanted to ease the atmosphere. Just as he called my name, he was stopped by a look from Mandy. To be honest, sometimes I really admire Mandy's ease. Among the 3 men present, how can she flirt with one man with peace of mind, and then comfort and approach the other 2 men without any burden later? She has a pond full of fish, but the water is never muddy. Mandy retreated half a body and was silent for half a minute. Penny, do you have any misunderstandings about me? She looked at me innocently and her voice was so soft that it could squeeze out water. 7. No misunderstandings. I turned my head and stared at her firmly. I just think you and Kevin have an affair. Mandy was obviously stunned for a moment. And her panic was visible to the naked eye. The most interesting thing is that she first looked at her diagonal opposite. Opposite me. There is also survival of the fittest in the fish pond. Although I'm sorry. Kevin, do you know that your ranking is behind other fish? Mandy gritted her teeth. Penny, you really misunderstood me. I apologize to you. But I and Kevin are really just friends. Chapter to her tone was as innocent as ever. But her eyes kept drifting to the opposite side of me again and again. There's no need to explain to me. My eyes lingered between her and Kevin. And my expression also began to look innocent. Didn't Kevin tell you? We broke up. Kevin put on an appearance of wanting to speak but hesitating. Penny. I rolled my eyes 5, 6, 7 or 8 times in my heart. I'm full. He looked at me, pursed his lips in thought for about 10 seconds. Don't forget the department meeting at night. Then he watched me leave. 8. Having known him for more than 10 years, I have thoroughly understood his little habits. He is still very calm. He just thinks that it's a bit difficult to deal with my insistence on breaking up with him. But he is convinced that I will still come back to him after going around. Because I can't live without him. In the 4th grade of primary school, my parents divorced. I followed my mother and moved back to my hometown and became neighbors upstairs and downstairs with Kevin. His family is on the 3rd floor and mine is on the 2nd floor. The teachers in the new school always lecture in dialect. I couldn't understand them. Soon my grades dropped from the top 10 in the class to the bottom of the class. And Kevin has always been the first in grade. Aunt Chu is very enthusiastic. After knowing that I didn't do well in my studies, she often invited me to their house for meals and asked Kat and to explain questions to me. Our interactions began to increase little by little. After school, I would ride on the back seat of his bicycle and go home. I would rush into his room with my small school bag and wait for him to explain questions to me. I would write small notes to him in class and also borrow his homework at the end of winter and summer vacations. I would open the door a little crack. After seeing him go downstairs, I would pretend to run into him by chance and then go for a morning run with him. He sat in the diagonal back seat of me. When he saw me dozing off in class, he would poke me with his pen cap. The last sentence of every note he sent back was always Penny. Listen carefully. If I still didn't understand the question after he explained it 3 times, he would look at me helplessly. Penny, were you absent-minded in class again? For the last time. Listen carefully. Of course. There is still one more time after the last time. 9. In the second year of high school. When we divided into liberal arts and science classes. Mandy, I, and Kevin became classmates. Kevin sat behind Mandy. Every time I looked back after class, I could see Mandy asking Kevin to explain questions. Later, Kevin took her to and from school. I followed him to take her to and from school. But obviously her home is not close to ours. Her arrival turned me and Kevin into a group of 3. Mandy always complained to me about Kevin, saying that he was old-fashioned and fierce. However, he has always been very gentle. Only to her is he like this. I hid all my girlish thoughts, mediated between them, watched Kevin lower his head to Mandy again and again, do many things for her one by one that he didn't want to do before, and gradually become someone I don't recognize. Watching them get closer and closer. In the end, even I couldn't fit in. Only then did I realize that I was already very far away from Kevin. This one's my best friend, and the brother who was best to me. After the college entrance examination, all my girlish thoughts burst out at this moment. I realized belatedly that Kevin likes Mandy. And I am jealous of Mandy. I walked alone in my difficult secret love. But where can a girl's liking stop, just because she says so? I am still Kevin's little tail. Even though he doesn't need me anymore. I told myself, it doesn't matter. I can wait. I vaguely remember that it was an ordinary day. Kevin invited me to have a meal in the snack street of the university town. He said, "Do you want to give it a try with me?" There was not the slightest uneasiness or nervousness in his eyes. It was as casual as asking me what to eat today. My heart was sour and swollen. I knew very well that his question to me was not out of liking, but the curve of the corner of my mouth still kept rising. I heard myself say softly, "Okay. It doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't matter. If I work a little harder, maybe he will like me? So, it's not his fault. All his certainty is given by me." 10. Out of the cafeteria door. The sun was just right outside. "Penny, look ahead. There are still plenty of good days waiting for you." Yo-Yo covered her stomach and pitifully came up to me. "Penny, let's go to the snack street." I didn't eat enough. Actually, I didn't either. I was just busy arguing just now. Someone behind interrupted. "Excuse me. I want to ask. Do you know how to get to the stationery store?" The voice was clear and clean. And there was also a soft tone like a whisper. Very nice. I looked back. It was the fish that Mandy cared about. I have no good feelings for the people around Mandy. But if this person is handsome enough, I can barely restore the negative good feeling to 0. In a society that judges by appearance, handsome guys can always receive a lot of preferential treatment. For example, now, Yo-Yo, ignoring my look, starts inviting him. We are going to the snack street. The snack street is in the same direction as the stationery store. Do you want to come together? Then thank you. He agreed. I walked at the back, watching Yo-Yo talk to that boy. The boy's posture is tall and straight, and his profile is distinct. I have to admit that Mandy's hunting targets are all of high quality. Kevin is like this. So is this one in front of me. He is well-mannered and elegant in speech. At a glance, he seems to have good upbringing. After walking all the way, Yo-Yo chattered nonstop all the way without stopping. Suddenly she turned her head and looked at me, then turned back and asked the boy, "Classmate, what's your relationship with that girl just now?" I unconsciously pricked up my ears. "You mean Mandy?" "Yes. It's that Mandy." The voice in front paused for a few seconds. I raised my head and had a brief eye contact with that boy unexpectedly. His pupils were thick and black, containing emotions that were hard to see. Chapter 3. He spoke clearly, enunciating each word deliberately. Just a schoolmate. Not very familiar. Girls are really emotional creatures. As I watched his red lips open and close, in just 5 or 6 seconds, I found him much more pleasing to the eye than just now. Elegant taste. 10. 11. For departmental regular meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening. I deliberately arrived 20 minutes early. When I arrived, Evan was already in the conference room. Along with him were two vice ministers of the department, Vicky and Tina. Penny, you're here. Vicky greeted me. Yes. I nodded to her, and then walked around to Kevin's side. Kevin, do you have time? I want to talk to you. Kevin and I entered the storage room, next to the conference room. I want to quit the student union. I lowered my head and looked at my toes, not wanting to look him in the eye. It was very quiet around. I heard him take a deep breath. Penny, don't be silly. I don't understand. Why do you suddenly want to break up with me? Block me for no reason. And now want to quit the student union for no reason? Can't we be fine as we are? Of course it's not for no reason. It's just leaving early when disappointment has accumulated enough. He thought he had hidden it from me very well. But in fact, I know everything. In the past, pretending not to know was because the liking was still there. The only thing that can blind a woman's eyes is nothing but love. I took out a screenshot of the moments on the evening of September 6th. Thanks to someone Jew for treating me to a big meal. It's so nice to have you all. Flowers, candlelight, steak, and a man's hand. I am extremely familiar with the watch on the man's hand. After all, I bought it with my pocket money for a semester. Kevin, that day was my birthday. If you had done things a bit more neatly and not let me see it, I could have pretended not to know. But why are you so careless? 12. He looked at his phone and hurriedly came over to grab my shoulder. But I dodged sideways. Penny, this time it's my fault. But trust me, I really have nothing with her. I took a step back. There's no need to say anything. I came today to quit the student union. He looked at me and reacted for a while. His tone began to soften and he persuaded patiently. Penny, you have been in the student union for the 3rd year. Apart from me, you also have feelings for the department. We can talk about emotional matters slowly when we go back. But don't be impulsive about quitting the club. Look, Vicky, Tina and others have a good relationship with you. And the top 10 campus singers will be held soon. The office group can't do without you. I didn't even know I was so important. Vicky is from the office group. Even without me, she can handle it. As for Tina, Tina likes you and doesn't like me. She always speaks sarcastically and insults me. Don't you know? Or do you pretend not to know even if you know? Kevin stared at me and started to press his lips together. This is his subconscious action when he is nervous. Penny, I just think this person is insignificant. It took me a long time to get rid of my liking for Kevin. Now, I am extremely firm. Kevin, I want to quit the student union. You know, I joined the student union just to spend more time with you. But we broke up. Staying here will only make me more uncomfortable. I have envisioned countless beautiful futures for you and me. But I didn't expect our final ending to be like this. Brother Kevin, I'm leaving. He struggled in place. The corners of his eyes began to turn red slowly. But in the end he didn't come up to pull me. I walked past him and opened the door. Tina's face turned pale outside the door. After seeing me come out, she glared at me viciously. 13. I have never thought that I am a kind person. My softness is only for those who deserve it. In junior high school, I often heard others say behind my back that I am a wild child without a father. Later, I became the discipline committee member and he became a frequent visitor to the head teacher's office. There was a gossipy woman in the alley who said that my mother is a young widow and her behavior must be immoral. The next day, her window was smashed by a stone. Kevin has always thought that I am a quiet and well-behaved child. But it's not like that. I have always been a bad child, who knows how to disguise. Just as he doesn't know, this breakup was planned by me half a year ago. I still remember that night until now. The snow was falling heavily. I was still shivering with cold even though I was wearing long underwear. But all of this was not as chilling as the moment when I saw Kevin hugging Mandy downstairs in the boys' dormitory. The day before this, my mother called me crying and said that Grandma had passed away. I called him more than a dozen times in a panic, but he didn't answer. I took the train back to my hometown alone. During this period, I was always worried about whether something had happened to him. After seeing Grandma for the last time and comforting my mother, I rushed back without stopping. I didn't expect it to be like this. I have always known that Kevin is not with me because he likes me. This relationship was stolen by me. But I never thought that this fact would be presented to me in such a way. I squatted on the snow. In my mind, all the bittersweet unrequited love passed by. Those unknown girly thoughts. Those bitter memories tasted alone. All the little details that I pretended not to care about, but actually cared about extremely came flooding towards me. Letting go seemed to be just a momentary thing. 14. After that night, I fell ill. Yo-Yo took care of me for a whole week before I recovered. During this period, Kevin also called me twice. I used physical discomfort as an excuse to get by. If this relationship is going to end, I also hope to say goodbye in person. But he is still hiding things from me. Chapter 4. I invited him out to eat. I asked him indirectly why he didn't answer my calls. He told me that a friend of his came to visit him, and he didn't see the missed calls. He didn't know when his phone was turned off. A very lame reason. During the meal, this phone kept ringing and the notification sounds of WeChat messages came one after another. He glanced at me. The corner of his mouth curved up and then down. That friend of mine. Very lame acting. Suddenly I didn't want to let it go so easily. Kevin. In the past 6 months, I have been treating you well as always. But you don't know how many of your habits I have changed in the past 6 months. Others say that men always understand how much they have lost only after breaking up. Then does it mean that the better I am to you, the more deeply you will remember me? Even if this kindness is ulterior. 15. As soon as I got back to the dormitory, I received a WeChat message from Vicky. The general meaning is that this year's top 10 singers competition is in a very tight schedule and there are not enough people in the department. Even if I want to quit the club, I am also expected to wait until after the top 10 singers competition is over. I have a good personal relationship with Vicky. In the end, I agreed. But I also made it clear that this is the last time. Kevin has always been a popular figure in the school. Before long, the news of my breakup with him spread on the campus for him. Given that I was always the one taking the initiative and getting along with him before, enthusiastic netizens unanimously think that I will be dejected and unable to recover because of the breakup. Some people even opened a bet on how long it will take for me to turn back. Compared to the chaos on the internet, my life is really much simpler. Every day, I go between the dormitory, classroom and library. Then, I met that boy. He was carrying a black shoulder bag and wearing a white t-shirt. He tapped on the table lightly. "Excuse me. Is this seat taken?" As I looked up, I saw him bending down. So close was the distance that I could even see his coffee-colored pupils and curly, thick eyelashes. I looked at the library where there were no other seats left and silently moved away the book in front of me. After 3 seconds, I opened the chat box with Yo-Yo. "Beautiful Yuan. The handsome guy you said was good is sitting opposite me now. Are you sure you won't come to study today?" Yo-Yo's reply is always very quick. "Which one are you talking about? I am on a date with a cute younger guy now. Don't disturb me." After 3 seconds, her call came. The phone vibrated, which made the man opposite look up. I smiled apologetically and answered in a low voice while shrinking my neck. "Hello? Yo-Yo, Penny. Did you forget to bring an umbrella when you went out? Remember to go back to the dormitory early. The weather forecast says it will rain from afternoon until night. I'm afraid you won't be able to come back before evening self-study." I looked at my watch. "I will go back in half an hour." 16. 25 minutes later, I stood in the lobby of the library, looking at the pouring rain outside and sighing. Can this weather forecast be any less accurate? That boy was standing next to me, opening his shoulder bag and searching there. I looked at the rain outside and took a step forward. Classmate. Excuse me. Can you give me a ride? The boy looked at his shoulder bag, then at me, and said with pursed lips, sorry. I didn't bring an umbrella either. Oh. I took a step back. Didn't bring an umbrella but searched there for a long time? I stood in the lobby with him for a while. The rain outside didn't show any sign of abating. I was staring at the rain curtain absentmindedly when I saw Mandy coming in the rain wearing a white dress and holding a flowery umbrella. She was obviously carefully dressed. Even her hair was emitting a strong fragrance, which hit my nose. What a coincidence. Penny. You are here too. She greeted me while putting away her umbrella. I pretended not to hear and raised my eyebrows looking at the rain curtain outside. She should have been used to my ignoring and didn't care. She turned around and greeted that boy. Mark. Let's go. Her voice was so sweet that it made my ears ache. The boy named Mark still stood where he was and replied casually, Where to? Mandy paused her steps, pulled her skirt, and curved her lips in a smile. Ah. Didn't you say you wanted to study? Oh. I'm done. His voice was without any fluctuation. He added, There are still empty seats on the second floor. You can go by yourself. I turned my head and watched the smile on Mandy's face slowly disappear. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. From high school to college. In my impression, Mandy is like a deliberately blooming, bright and beautiful flower. She moves among various boys with ease and always has a proper smile and an innocent look. It's very rare that she would also be frustrated by a boy. Mandy realized and changed the topic. Actually, Mark took out his earphones from somewhere, put them on, and then started to gently beat time with his mouth. Awesome. Sisters. Mandy's face flushed red. She stomped her high heels and turned around to walk into the library. She walked quickly, obviously very angry. Mark was completely unaware. There was no expression on his face. He just showed me his profile. Aside from his handsome face, his actions just now were so straightforward and brave. My favorability for him increased by 10, probably because my gaze was too blatant. Mark took off his earphones, turned around and looked down at me. Is there something? Classmate. I licked my lips and was possessed by a whim. Classmate. Do you have a girlfriend? 17. He froze. The sound and picture seemed to be out of sync. The whole tone was flat and long. Obviously. He was a bit shocked. I thought for 3 seconds and pointed in the direction where Mandy had just left. Just now. She was showing her interest in you. Classmate. She wants to chase you. You are so clueless. You are very likely to get beaten up. He realized and said oh, and seemed a bit disappointed. Chapter 5. The atmosphere visibly became silent. We looked at each other face to face for 3 seconds, and were both a bit embarrassed. Finally, he broke the deadlock. She often sends me messages and wants to study with me. Sometimes. She will also ask me some questions and bring me some food. As I listened, I nodded. It was indeed Mandy's usual style. He paused and his tone became a bit cautious. But I don't like her. Telling me your true thoughts right away? Classmate. Aren't you a bit too familiar? But actually, I was more curious. Don't you think she is very lively, cheerful and has a good personality? During the time when the three of us, me, Mandy and Kevin, were together, the most common thing Kevin said to me when we were alone was, Penny, it would be great if you were as lively and cheerful as Mandy. Now thinking back, forget about that, be like Mandy. My name is Penny. No. Mark didn't even need to think and just shook his head. It's deliberate. Putting it nicely. It's deliberate. Putting it harshly. It's hypocritical. This was the first time I heard a boy evaluate Mandy like this. I looked at him and instantly felt like seeing a fellow countryman. Tears welled up in my eyes. For girls. As long as someone hates the same person as you, you can become friends immediately. In the next second. I took out my phone. Classmate. Add me on WeChat. Good eyesight. My favorability for him increased by 10. 18. I scanned Mark's QR code. With a swipe of his finger, it showed on my side that the friend request was successful. Just as I was about to properly explain to him the concept of green tea, a kind of tea, my phone rang. It was Yo-Yo calling. Alas, for some inexplicable reason, this white moonlight character just likes the female lead. In the end, the female lead and the white moonlight have a happy ending, while the second male lead and second female lead can only stare in frustration. You for people 1, 2, 3, 4 are all here. I gave her a disapproving look. No wonder your novel can't make money. She immediately got angry. Sister. Chatting is chatting. Don't jinx me. My recent passionate new work, The Sickly Young Master Falls in Love with Me, definitely has the potential to become a huge hit and resound on both sides of the Yangtze River. I replied perfunctorily. Oh. Yo-Yo played around on my bed for a while before leaving. When I opened my phone, I found that Mark had sent me quite a few messages. The last one was a 2-second voice message. Are you still there? His voice was deep and had a softness that made one's body tingle. 20. Yo-Yo may talk nonsense, but her words did indeed extinguish my desire to chat. At 11:15 at night. It is far from the time when contemporary college students go to bed. Holding my phone, I began to lie with my eyes open. Sorry. I just went to wash up. I'm going to sleep now. Classmate. Less than 2 minutes after I sent it, Mark replied. Good night. In the following days, he was as quiet as a mouse on my moments. Until one night, I scrolled through his update on my moments. Does anyone know where the School Affairs Office of B University is? I want to buy some cold medicine. In my mind flashed the image of him half soaked in rain that day. Just as my finger was about to click on his profile picture. In the next second, I saw Mandy's comment on his post. Is it serious? I have cold medicine here. Shall I bring it to you? I quickened my pace, clicked on his profile picture quickly, and entered the private chat box. The infirmary is on the first floor of Building 9 for male students. You can get an intravenous drip there or buy medicine. Classmate. There are people on duty 24 hours. Saving innocent young people is everyone's responsibility. Big Chinese cabbage. You mustn't be taken by others. It took him 5 minutes to reply. But I'm at Building 9 now and I didn't see the infirmary. I typed quickly on my phone. It's rather hard to find. Walk all the way to the end along the corridor. Then there is a small door on the right. After passing through the small door, turn right. The first room is it. This time, in less than 10 seconds, he directly made a video call. I pressed the answer button, and in the next second, the corridor of Building 9 appeared on my phone. Is it this way all the way to the end? I pointed the way for him through the screen. In just a few minutes, the signalboard of the infirmary appeared on my phone. Classmate. Then if there's nothing else, I'll hang up. You should go and buy some medicine quickly. Hey. Wait. In the next second, the phone screen changed from the corridor to his face. Short messy hair. Phoenix eyes. White mask. He said. Thank you, Penny. Probably due to having a cold. His voice was muffled. But when he called my name, enunciating each syllable slowly, it was extremely clear. My heart skipped a beat. In the next second, I hung up the video call. Future novelist Yo-Yo is right. Men are all monsters who can bewitch people. 21. The next night, Mark sent me a thank you message on WeChat. I'm much better. I still have to thank you for helping me find the infirmary. Attached was a photo of a thermometer showing the temperature. I replied politely and officially. You're welcome. It's what I should do. We're all classmates. A voice message came from him in a flash. There's also an unreasonable request. I'm new here and don't know the place well. Can you show me around the campus? The chat box was silent for 3 minutes. Another voice message came from him. I only have you as a friend at B University. His voice was still a bit muffled. Presumably, he hadn't fully recovered from his cold. I inevitably softened and agreed. Then wait until your cold is a bit better. He immediately sent a screenshot of the weather forecast for the next week. How about Saturday? There's no rain that day. I saw myself slowly typing on the screen. Okay. 22. We agreed to meet at the school gate at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. But when I went out at 7:45, I saw him standing at the entrance of my dormitory building. Chapter 7 people were coming and going beside him. Many people were looking at him and whispering. He was completely unaffected, standing straight. He held a plastic bag in both hands and clasped them in front. How should I put it? He was just like a well-behaved primary school student waiting for someone. You're here. When he saw me coming out, he took 2 steps forward to greet me and then handed over the plastic bag. Breakfast. His tone was so natural that I felt that our interaction should have been like this. I took the plastic bag smoothly and opened it. Looking inside, I couldn't help exclaiming. Soy milk. Fried dough sticks. Sesame oil dumplings. Steamed buns. Steamed dumplings. And a Taiwanese rice ball. I said. Why is it so bulging? This is too much. He frowned and scratched his head in embarrassment. I didn't know what you eat. So I bought a little of everything. I took him from the dormitory area all the way to the school gate. And then passed by the elective course building, the administrative building, the gymnasium, and the playground along the way. This is where we recharge our water cards and meal cards. There is an ICBC self-service bank inside here. When paying for exam and competition registration fees, we go there. This row is all the duty rooms of the schools, student union and clubs. This is our school's bulletin board. Basically, all level exams and school activities will be posted here. I stood in front of the bulletin board and pointed at the several posters pasted on it. For example, the Top 10 Singers competition organized by our department, and the Business Alliance organized by the Outreach Department next door will all be posted here. Organized by your department? He bent down a little and looked at the poster of the Top 10 Singers. In the final analysis, I still have feelings for the department. As soon as he asked, I immediately climbed up the pole and even felt a little proud. Of course. We planned the entire competition from beginning to end. The final will also invite famous musicians from the entire city to be judges. The first place in the competition will also get the position of campus spokesperson next year and shoot a promotional video for the campus. I pointed to last year's champion on the poster and raised my eyebrows at him. Look. How handsome. He stared at the poster for a long time, turned his head without expression. Where is he handsome? I looked at the person in the poster, and then at the person in front of me, and started to walk forward in small steps. I had no reason in my heart, but I was stubborn in my mouth. People sing well. This is called personal charm. I'm not the kind of person who is so shallow as to only look at faces. Okay? I'm not. I should not be. Right? He stood still. After a long time, he caught up. Penny. They said I sing very well too. 23. He put his hands behind his back, turned half of his body sideways, and stared at me fixedly with his eyes. His voice very serious. I pretended not to hear clearly. Huh? He stopped smiling and stood still, feeling that no one had followed for a long time. I looked back and was already more than 20 meters away from him. Penny. He called me where he was. People on the road looked sideways one after another. I couldn't bear the curious gazes of others. I trotted over. What's the matter? His eyes were full of light. Like stars. The stars shine on me. I haven't seen you in the library recently. You seem to be avoiding me. I, of course, can't admit it. No. I was just busy the past 2 days. He kept pressing. Then shall we go to the library together today? Seeing that I didn't agree, he added another sentence. I only have you as a friend at B University. The tone was a little pitiful. I was completely unable to resist. Stammering. Okay. Okay. Then can I invite you to have lunch today? As a thank you for your help to me all this time. But I only have you at B University. Okay. Okay. I quickly interrupted him. Do you want to go to the snack street or the business center? He smiled, looking innocent and harmless. Anywhere is fine. You decide. 24. Sometimes I think Mark's emotional intelligence is very low. Because sometimes he is so straightforward that it's unbelievable. Too Mandian to me. But sometimes I think his emotional intelligence is very high. Because except for those straightforward moments, I have always been very comfortable getting along with him. I have always felt that he is taking care of me. Anyway, no matter what, we have more and more interactions. As time passed gradually, it soon came to November. The competition of the top 10 singers also entered the final stage. I had promised Vicky to help before. So for the regular meeting on Wednesday, I still went. At the regular meeting, he even sorted out all the work of this competition into a table. All tasks are refined and assigned to individuals. The part I am responsible for is to send messages, to notify the 16 finalists to participate in the rehearsal on the 15th and the final on the 16th as scheduled. At the end of the regular meeting, Kevin blocked at the door, grabbed my hand and blocked my way. Penny, can we talk? The others couldn't avoid it quickly. Soon only the two of us were left in the entire conference room. I tried to shake off his hand. But the disparity in strength between men and women is really great. You're hurting me. I frowned and said unceremoniously. Then, he hesitated a little. Can you talk to me? You blocked me. I can't find you. His hand holding mine was very cold and trembling. So pitiful. But I was unmoved. But, Kevin, I often couldn't find you before either. I watched the light in his eyes slowly fade. And there was a trace of malicious happiness in my heart. You were absent from many moments that I thought were meaningful. But it doesn't matter. It won't be needed in the future either. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Indeed, there was nothing to say. I pried off his hand that was holding me finger by finger, raised my head and looked directly at him. Are you free? I have something I want to give you. There was a flash of light in his eyes. Chapter 8. I began to look forward to his reaction when he received the thing. Malicious flowers bloomed in my heart. 25. I started preparing this gift half a year ago. In fact, it's just some small things full of my emotions. The couple pendants, couple cups, and couple slippers I bought. The scarf and gloves I knitted myself. And the wallet tie made by hand. Some of his shares have been given out. There are still some that I haven't found a suitable time to give out. I like traveling, but he doesn't. But I always want to share the beautiful scenery along the way with him. So every time I go to a place, I will buy local postcards. The postcards are all my ramblings about the local scenery and my missing for him. I sent them several times, but every time he put them aside casually. In the end, I collected them. These postcards and small items are all proofs of my liking him in those years. Finally, I wrote a letter. I have polished this letter for half a year. It starts with, I used to like you very much, and ends with, but the liking can only end here. I want him to understand, in this relationship, he has always owed me. Even if it's over, I want him to feel guilty towards me. And it can't stop for a long time. I put all the things in a cardboard box and then handed it to Kevin, who was waiting downstairs in the dormitory. Looking at these things that are mostly familiar, he was very silent and at a loss. I stared at him fixedly and said in a flat tone without fluctuation, I'll give you all these things. I don't want them anymore. I don't want you anymore either. 26. At 11 o'clock at night, a maid's roommate then called me and said, Kevin is drunk on the snack street and has been chanting my name. He said, there is nothing serious between young couples. Quarrels will pass. He said, come and see Kevin. Naturally, I refused. After hanging up the phone, I blacklisted all his roommates one by one. At this point, all is well. Soon it was the 15th, the day of the rehearsal for the final of the top 10 singers. During this period, Kevin tried to talk to me whenever he could, but was intentionally or unintentionally blocked by Mark. Yes, Mark also participated in the competition of the top 10 singers. Not only him, Mandy also came. The teacher in charge of this competition is new and very good at coming up with new ideas. She thinks that in order to show the school's image of friendly exchanges, for such school-level competitions, there must be some places reserved for exchange students. And Mandy and Mark are the two singers who stand out in the exchange student track. 27. The entire rehearsal is very chaotic. The teacher in charge has new ideas one after another, resulting in major changes on the scene. Almost all the deployment work has to be redone, and the progress is seriously lagging behind. The original time plan was rehearsal all day on the 15th, and rehearsal starts at 12 noon on the 16th and lasts until 6 p.m. At 6:30 p.m. on the 16th, the competition officially begins. However, based on the rehearsal situation on the evening of the 15th, in order to ensure the final effect of the competition, we can only urgently notify all the contestants and staff present to start supplementary rehearsal at 8 a.m. on the 16th. At 8 a.m. the next morning, 15 contestants were all present, except Mandy. No one answered the phone, and there was no reply to the text message. Unfortunately, she was the third in the competition order. Seeing that the time was approaching 8:30, the teacher in charge's face became worse and worse. In the end, she could only ask the singers behind to fill in the vacancies and start the rehearsal first. Around 10 o'clock, Tina called me out of the dressing room. At the door stood the teacher in charge and Mandy. Before I could stand still, the teacher in charge began to criticize. "Did you notify the contestants yesterday?" She pushed her glasses. "Why are there still contestants who don't know that there is a rehearsal this morning?" I explained. "Teacher, when we finished the rehearsal yesterday, we notified the contestants on the spot." She pointed at Mandy and glared at me. "Now the situation is that there is a contestant who says she didn't receive the notice. As a result, she didn't come to the rehearsal just now. What if there is a problem in the official competition tonight? Who will take this responsibility?" I suppressed the anger rising in my heart and stared at Mandy. "Classmate, are you sure you didn't receive the notice?" Mandy was delicate and weak, and spoke slowly. "Maybe it's..." I impatiently interrupted. "Classmate, please speak clearly. Don't use words like maybe or perhaps that can cause misunderstandings. Did I notify you yesterday?" "No." Mandy clenched her teeth. She was telling lies with her eyes open, but very helplessly. "When I notified her yesterday, there was no one in the dressing room. I have no evidence." The teacher in charge sighed. "You say what kind of student cadre like you can do well? You can't even do such a small thing as notifying others well. Can I count on you? But you clearly know that there is a rehearsal this morning." Before the teacher in charge finished speaking, she was interrupted. Mark came out from the corner, stood still, and looked sideways at Mandy and said, "Obviously you asked me last night if we should come to the rehearsal together this morning." He took out his mobile phone from his pocket, clicked on the chat box, and held it in front of the teacher in charge, adding the final blow. "Mark is really professional." The teacher in charge's face changed instantly. Mandy's body was tottering, but Mark seemed to be unaware of this abnormal atmosphere. He took back his mobile phone, turned his head and winked at me. My anger disappeared completely in an instant. 28. Compared with the frequent problems in the morning, the evening's official competition went very smoothly. Mark didn't deceive me. He really sings well. In the end, he won the second place in the competition, and because of his unique face, he was gloriously elected as the campus's most popular singer. Chapter 9. As for Mandy, her performance is more about form than content. She was criticized as worthless by the judges. In the end, she didn't even make it into the top 10 list. Our department has always had an unwritten rule. After the competition, everyone will go to a dinner party in groups. The regular process is barbecue stalls plus a wholesale KTV. Originally, I was about to quit the student union, so it was actually not appropriate to go. But Vicky pulled me and said it was a disguised farewell for me. Other little friends also kept persuading me. I have worked with these little friends for 2 years. When it's really time to leave, I still feel a little reluctant. So in the end, I half-heartedly agreed. Mark was originally waiting beside me. Immediately, he very directly asked Vicky if he could come. In the end, things vaguely turned into me bringing Mark, Kevin bringing Mandy, and the officers in the department going to the barbecue stall on the snack street together. At a large round table. On my left is Vicky. On my right is Mark. And opposite me is Kevin. On Kevin's left is Mandy. And on his right is Tina. It's really interesting. The first half of the entire dinner party can be summarized as contestant no. 1. Mandy generously showing her social skills and soloing by hinting that her relationship with Kevin is not shallow in her words. And contestant no. 2. Tina's love turning to hate and intentionally making Mandy embarrassed whenever she can. Mark and I quietly watched the excitement of these two people, and would exchange from time to time about what superb skills appeared in this back and forth process. Throughout the process, except for having to deliberately ignore Kevin's uninterrupted glances, it can be said to be very pleasant. In the second half of the dinner party, people kept coming to me to drink and chat. At first, I was still reserved and said I wouldn't drink at night. But in the end, I had a drink with Vicky. Once you start drinking, there is no turning back. When Kevin came to me with a glass, my face had already started to turn red, but I was still relatively sober. I looked away, pretended not to see him, and grabbed Mark and went to the toilet opposite the barbecue stall. Half an hour later, everyone moved to the wholesale KTV to continue having fun. Inside the box, the sound was noisy and the lights were dazzling. I took the opportunity to slip away to the lobby. After a while, Mark also followed. He sat beside me and pressed the back of his hand against my forehead. "Are you okay?" I was feeling the effects of alcohol. Although my mind was as muddled as paste, I clearly understood that today was the last evening party I organized in the department. The sadness in my heart continued to ferment and reached its peak at this moment. Mark, I'm not a member of the student union anymore. I can't organize evening parties anymore. In the future, I will have less and less interaction with them. And then it will come to the point where we just greet each other when we meet. He looked at me, his helplessness filled with tenderness. Penny, for all relationships, as long as one party is willing to take the initiative, they can be maintained. He said, "It's okay. I'll be with you." I was particularly bold after drinking. On a whim, I asked him, "Mark, do you like me?" 29. He looked at me intently, his Adam's apple rolling up and down. But he was silent. I waited a long time but couldn't get his answer. So, I put my hand on his back and approached him. In the dim light, his tightly pursed lips, light-colored pupils, and curled eyelashes were all extremely alluring. He tightened the corners of his mouth, visibly nervous. I had the intention of teasing him. But in the next second, his index finger pressed against my forehead and gently pushed me away. He said, "You're drunk." He stood up and looked down at me. "Penny, I can't resist temptation." The paste in my head was gurgling and producing many tiny bubbles. At 10:30, we dispersed. Mark accompanied me to the downstairs of my dormitory. I stood at the door and said goodbye to him. He grabbed me. "Penny, are you sober now?" I stared at him blankly. My mind had completely stopped working. "Forget it." He was somewhat helpless. "I can't hold back anymore. Penny, the first time I saw you wasn't at B University. It was at the college debate competition in September last year. As the fourth debater, you single and Ashen turned the tide and defeated our school's debate team. I was thinking at that time, This girl is so fierce, so powerful, so confident, and so beautiful. At that time, you were like a beam of light, confident and dazzling. You asked me if I like you? I do. 30. Penny. Are you and Mark together? When Yo-Yo rushed over in a commotion, I was eating melon seeds and watching a drama. Immediately, the melon seeds scattered all over the floor. No. How is that possible? I denied. It had been 2 days since we last messaged each other since that day. Well, it was me who didn't reply unilaterally. I really didn't know how to reply to him. What's not? The campus forum is going crazy. There are pictures and the truth. Look. Yo-Yo clicked on her phone and held it in front of me. Surprise! The beauty queen of the English department, Penny, seamlessly transitions to an exchange student from a university after a breakup. This title is very sensational. It seems that the person who wrote the post usually chats about gossip a lot. I scrolled down. At the bottom were a set of photos of me and Mark in the KEV. The time when the photos were taken should be when I was teasing him. The photo angle was so tricky that people who didn't know the truth would think we were having a friendly exchange with saliva. Scrolling down further, there were all comments in agreement. No way. Does the poster only know now? I've seen the above to people entering and leaving the library together a long time ago. This guy has come to wait for this girl downstairs our dormitory before. The guy often escorts the girl back to the dormitory building. Chapter 10. In addition to the comments, there were various pictures attached, either clear or blurry, all showing me and him in the same frame on campus. Yo-Yo looked at me menacingly. Tell me, confess honestly. Lenient treatment for confession. Severe punishment for resistance. In the next second, someone knocked on the door of the dormitory. A little sister from the neighboring dormitory poked out half of her head. Penny. There's a guy waiting for you downstairs the dormitory. Yo-Yo squinted at me and said in a sarcastic tone. Oh, speak of the devil. Go on your night date with your lover. I'll deal with you when you come back. 31. Yo-Yo thought it was Mark, who was looking for me. But in fact it was Kevin. Penny. He blocked in front of me. His voice was unprecedentedly desolate, and even mixed with a hint of pleading. If it were a week ago, I would definitely be secretly happy. But at this moment, there was no fluctuation in my heart. It's not that I've forgiven him. I just don't want to bother anymore. I still hold a grudge against his once dismissive attitude towards my feelings. But I want to let go of myself. Mark said that I was once confident and dazzling. But in fact, I've lost such me for a long time. Liking is not a fault. I don't want to punish myself for other people's mistakes. I asked him, what's the matter? He hesitated for a long time and said hesitantly, Penny, what's the matter between you and Mark? My tone was flat. Kevin, we've broken up. It has nothing to do with you, who I am with, and what's going on. No. Penny, we're not over. He shook his head, his face full of resistance. I didn't want to get entangled anymore and didn't want to give him hope. This matter should end here. Kevin, do you remember last winter? Once I called you more than a dozen times. You didn't answer. On that day, my grandma passed away. I was very sad. I needed someone to accompany me. But I couldn't reach you. When I rushed back overnight, I didn't blame you for not answering my call. I was thinking whether something had happened to you. I was worried about you. So the next day, I took a 7 or 8-hour green train to come back and find you. And then I saw you hugging Mandy. No. It's not. It's not. He eagerly wanted to grab me. I can explain. But I don't need your explanation anymore. I pried his hand off little by little. There are more than just this one thing we disagree on. You haven't been there for a long time. I liked you for so long but couldn't warm you up. So I've made up my mind to retreat knowing it's difficult. Let go of myself and also let go of you. Half a year ago, I decided to break up. In that letter to you, except for breaking up with you, which is true, Everything else is false. I've been lying to you all along. His face was pale. The corners of his eyes were red. And his knees were slightly bent. Penny. Can you? Even if it's a lie. Don't leave me. I looked at this face that I had liked for many years. Extremely calm. But what can I do? I don't want to waste any more time on you at all. I comforted him coldly. It's okay. You just lost someone who likes you but you don't like. That's all. The light in his eyes faded inch by inch. Thirty-two, when Mark walked out from under the tree. My heart twitched suddenly. Why are you here? I was a bit hesitant. He looked at me with an ambiguous meaning. I wanted to see you. Ask you for an answer. And ask why you have ignored me these days. How much did you hear just now? I asked him in turn. All of it. I sighed and looked up at him directly. Then you should know that I just broke up. And I'm not a good person either. If it's the former, I don't care. He put his hands in his pockets and his eyes were locked on me. If it's the latter, I'm not necessarily a good person either. But do you have a good impression of me? My heart was racing. And my mind was as chaotic as a mess. I said, Mark, can you give me some time? He said, okay. 33. You obviously have feelings for him too. Why don't you agree? What on earth are you worried about? I don't understand. Yo-Yo frowned and looked at me. With a bitter and resentful look. I just broke up 2 months ago. Don't you think it's too fast to accept a new relationship? Moreover, Mark and I have only known each other for 2 months. We don't know each other well enough yet. What if we are not suitable? She rolled her eyes at me. Come on. Is your previous loveless relationship even considered a relationship? Sister. Don't think too much. Now there are many people who get together in a week or a month after knowing each other. When the feeling comes, there are not so many reasons. Speaking of this, I seemed to see him strolling in the snack street with a girl at noon today. She approached me slyly. You have to think it over. If you don't want Mark, this handsome guy, there will be a lot of people competing with you. Didn't Mandy always try to get close to him before? Really? I was a bit incredulous. Mark didn't seem like an impatient person. But I couldn't help but inquire. What's that girl like? As she spoke, she drew a semicircle in front of her chest. She has a big chest, a thin waist, and is a 30 Anyway, think it over carefully. She patted my shoulder and walked into the toilet gracefully. After half an hour, I tossed and turned on the bed. And the more I thought about it, the more something seemed wrong. Yojo was sitting on my lower bunk and making fun of me. Why? Now you feel a sense of crisis? No, you're in a hurry? I stuck out half of my head. Then what should we do now? Yo-Yo did a carp jump and got up from the bed. Her 2 eyes were shining brightly. I have a way. Let's do this. I'll call and say you are sick. If he is worried about you, he will definitely contact you and take this opportunity to care about you. Then the 2 of you can be half reluctant and half willing. Isn't it done? Chapter 11. Will it work? I was half believing and half doubting. Oh. It must work. Give me your phone. Yo-Yo picked up my phone and started dialing quickly. She also thoughtfully turned on the speakerphone. The ringtone on the other end rang for 3 seconds. And then Mark's voice sounded. Hello? Hello. Mark. Yo-Yo gave me a sly smile and then jumped 1 meter away. Listen carefully. Penny said she misses you, adores you, and likes you so much that she can't help it. My blood rushed straight to my head. I dashed to the lower bunk in 1 step, snatched the phone from Yo-Yo's hand, and then pressed it to end the call. I shouted, Yo-Yo, I'll strangle you. Yo-Yo was jumping around in the dormitory. We are all adults in our 20s. Be straightforward. If you like someone, be straightforward. Don't pull my hair. Penny. I'll fight you. 34. After that call, I checked my phone for the 38th time. After an hour, there was still no message. Yo-Yo came up to me. Why? Still no reply? I gave her a listless glance. What do you think he means? Yo-Yo patted my shoulder. Forget it. If this one doesn't work, there will be a better one next. Move on. I glared at her. In the next second, the phone screen flashed. Mark, come down. I ran downstairs in my pajamas all the way. When I reached the stairway entrance, I quickly smoothed my hair a few times. After making sure everything was okay, I started walking slowly towards the door. Mark was waiting at the dormitory door with his hands behind his back. When he saw me coming out, he greeted me familiarly. Here you are. I lowered my head and didn't dare to look at him. Penny, are you an ostrich? His voice was full of laughter, and his tone was full of teasing. I blushed and looked up. He took a step back and took out 11 red roses from behind. I heard that every girl hopes to receive fresh flowers and roses. Every girl wants to be favored. Every girl hopes to be unconditionally supported. Every girl should have someone come for her. Mark thinks he can do all of the above for Penny. All the waiting, I'll do. I don't know if you can give me an official identity to fulfill these responsibilities. His eyes were filled with stars. The stars shine on me. 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 Shine